चलो let's start where we left off. उसके अंदर हमने what we did was we had started talking about ions, right? And I told you that uh, the protons and the neutrons in an atom are kind of fixed, nucleus के अंदर होते हैं, and the electrons are on the outside, so they can be lost, they can be gained. Uh, so if an atom loses electron, it gets a negative. If it loses electrons, it gets a positive charge. So I told you that the charge increases. That's a better term uh, because it depends on the starting point. When an atom loses electrons, when an atom obviously loses electrons, it's going to get a positive charge. But a better way to think about it is that the charge is increasing. 0 tha plus 2, 0 plus 3, minus 1, 0. So that means increasing charge. Minus 3, 0. That's an increasing charge. So whenever you see increasing charge, that means the atom or the particle is losing electrons. And the other thing I told you about was when an atom gains electrons, so the opposite happens, that its charge decreases. It becomes more negative. If you start gaining electrons, you become more negative. But it depends what your starting point is. Oxygen gains 2 electrons, becomes minus 2. Nitrogen gains 3 electrons, becomes minus 3. Aluminium plus 3 becomes aluminium 0. The charge is decreasing because it's gaining electrons. So remember this. And then we talked about metals and non-metals. I told you that when you move across the period or across the period table, I specifically told you that the atoms, they have a greater and greater tendency to gain electrons. And the ones that like to gain electrons, they're known as non-metals, and the ones that like to lose electrons, they're known as metals. And this is a fine dividing line. It's not. It's a gradual change from metals to non-metals. So these ones are often referred to as metalloids because they a lot of times exhibit both metallic and non-metallic properties. But elements and atoms can be classified very broadly as metals and non-metals. And I also gave you the reason why they like to gain electrons, because I told you that if you the elements on the left side, they have fewer protons, so the nucleus isn't really attracting electrons. The elements on the right side have more protons, so their nucleus is kind of attracting electrons very strongly. So gave you this example. So the ones on the left are always losing electrons to the ones on the right. And we talked about charges. We talked about I talked about atoms getting a complete outer shell when they lose or gain electrons. Uh, the elements on the right side, they would continue to gain electrons as long as their outer shells are have some space in them. So by default, once their outer shells are completely full, they can't really gain electrons because there's no room to keep them. And the ones on the left, they would continue to lose electrons until the outer shells are complete. And they will only lose the outer shell electrons. The inner shell electrons would be tightly held by them, so they're not going to lose them. So by default, both of them, they would get a stable octet. They're going to get a complete outer shell, and the electronic configuration of both atoms would be of a noble gas configuration. Okay, so this one, just very quickly. Okay, so very quickly, let's try and draw a few of the atoms. You've got aluminium plus 3. So aluminium is 13 and 27. The smaller number is the number of protons and the number of electrons. And the difference is the number of neutrons. 27 minus 13, that's 14 neutrons. But since we're talking about aluminium plus 3, that means it has lost electrons. That means it has lost exactly 3 electrons. So the the atom would have 10 electrons instead of the usual 13 electrons. So in this case, if I were to draw the electronic configuration of this atom, it's going to look like this, that there are going to be 13 protons, 14 neutrons in the nucleus, and you would have just 2 shells. Because the last one, the 3 electrons in the last shell are gone. So it's just going to have 2 and 8 electrons instead of the 2 and 8 and 3 electrons. And the overall atom is now an ion. It's going to have a charge. The charge would be plus. It's going to be +3. So is this clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is +3. One second. Now, and similarly, you have negative ions. You've got S-2. So S-2, let's do P-3. What would P-3 look like? P is 31 and 15, I think. So it's 15 protons and it's 15 electrons and it's 15 minus 13, 16 neutrons. But since it's -3, that means it has gained 3 electrons. So that would be a total of 18 electrons. So that's the electronic configuration. 18 electrons would be 2, 8, and 8. So it's going to have 3 shells. There's going to be a nucleus in the center, and then they're going to be 3 shells around the atom. So the nucleus has how much? It has 15 protons and 16 neutrons, and all the electrons are it's 2, then it's 8, and the last one also has a total of 8 electrons. And the overall charge on this thing is going to be -3. That is what the overall charge on this thing is going to look like. Is this clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा so अफान वो बताना कि क्या क्वेश्चन था तुम्हारा कि मैं
Sir,
क्लास बोर्ड अच्छा ठीक है वो वीडियोस का ठीक है आई गॉट इट आई रिमेम्बर्ड
okay, okay.
ठीक है वो वैसे जाके ना यू कैन गो एंड लुक एट द लेटेस्ट वीडियोस उसके अंदर सीक्वेंस के अंदर ही है डेट वाइज इफ यू जस्ट
Okay, sir.
look at whatever I'll try and make a playlist ठीक है
Okay, sir.
अच्छा now this is all about atoms and ions these are your ions. And remember, atoms, they like to have complete outer shell. They like to have noble gas configuration. Uh, and also remember this. This is a very basic point. Remember that non-metals, they try to gain electrons, and they continue to try and gain electrons until the outer shell is complete. And non-metals, on the other hand, they continue to lose electrons until they've lost their complete outer shell. So this is one trend that's across the periodic table. You have metals and you have non-metals. So we're kind of done with atomic structure. What we're going to do now is we're going to do or practice questions related to atomic structure. Just a second. So questions related to atomic structure. Just one second. So let me try and open this. One second. So this I'm going to share this on the group as well. So this is the atomic structure worksheet, and we're going to try and do. We can try with GC. I mean, it's a mix of questions. So Just one second. Let me just think. I said this is O levels. So this is O levels. I said, anyway, starting with the first one, and you would need a periodic table for this. So let's open the AQA periodic table. You can just type AQA periodic table. You'll have a periodic table with you. And let me rotate this. Okay, so here's my periodic table. And let's start with these MCQs. Starting with the first one. The first one is talking about how many electrons and protons are in an ion of an element. So he's talking about an ion of element in group 2 of the periodic table. So the first thing is, what is the charge on group 2? So over here we did discuss what the charge on group 2 is. The charge on group 2 is, it's written over here. The group 2, they're metals and they lose 2 electrons to form plus 2 ions. So the charge on group 2 is plus 2. So he's talking about an ion. So now remember, proton numbers are always fixed. So open the periodic table and see which elements are in group 2. So you've got, this is group 2. You've got beryllium, you've got, so that's 4, magnesium 12, 20, 38, and 56, and so on. So let's see which elements are in. Elements are always identified by the proton number. So this one is 4. So 4 is group 2. And similarly, the other one is 12, 20. That's also group 2. 137. Let's try and see if 137, proton number 137 is. I mean, you don't have a proton number of 137. The smaller number is the proton number. Remember, you're searching for the smaller number. The proton number is the smaller number. So this one over here is not group 2. These three are group 2. Uh, he's talking about the ion, so the charge should be plus 2. Now, the number of protons and electrons are exactly the same if it's an atom. 4 protons, 4 electrons, 12 protons, 12 electrons. You've got 20 protons, so the number of electrons would also be 20. But he's not talking about an atom, he's talking about an ion. Plus 2 means that they have lost 2 electrons. So the number of electrons should be 2. I mean, lost 2 electrons, the number of electrons should be 10. If this loses 2 electrons, the number of electrons should be 18. So the first one is wrong, wrong number of electrons. The third one is also wrong. So the only option left is B. B is the correct one. That it's a group 2 element, and the number of electrons in the ion is going to be 10 because it's a plus 2 ion because it has lost electrons. So is this clear, this question?
Yes, sir.
Is this clear to everyone? Salama, is this clear? Ashida, Adil?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, next one is, in which option do the three particles each have the same number of electrons? Now remember, atoms can gain and lose electrons, and a lot of times they can also have the same number of electrons. I told you the only thing that's always fixed is the number of protons. An element will always have a fixed proton. All nitrogens would always have 7 protons, but the electrons and neutrons can change. So the first one, chlorine in the periodic table is 17. This is what is bromine? They're all in group 7. Just a second. So they're all in group 7. So bromine is 35. Iodine over here is 53. So you've got all three. So this is 35. This is 53. And all of them are -1. That means they've gained an electron. So this would be 18 electrons. This would be 36 electrons. This one would be 54 electrons. So that's definitely not correct. He's saying that they should have the same number of electrons. Can anyone work out which of the three have the same number of electrons? Anyone? What about option B? Salim, do you know this? I mean, how many electrons does fluorine have? Like, you should have a periodic table with you. Fluorine is 9, neon is 10, and sodium over here is 11. You remember the smaller number is the number of protons and the number of electrons. So fluorine has 9. So it's got 9 protons, 9. I mean, a neutral atom would have 9 electrons. Neon neutral atom would have 10 electrons, and you've got sodium. The neutral atom would have 11 electrons. But since it's plus one, so it's going to be it would have lost an electron. This is minus one, so that means it has actually gained an electron. So
Yes,
hence,
sir.
all three are basically having the exact number of electrons, the same number of electrons. Clear
Yes,
is
sir.
so is this clear? So I said next one. Next one is they have a question. Naturally occurring bromine has a relative atomic mass of 80 and consists entirely of two isotopes. One is 79 and the other is 81. And we did talk about bromine a bit when we were talking about isotopes. So just a quick recap. I told you that where's isotopes? I said over here. I told you that all atoms have different versions. The only thing that's different between those atoms of the same element is that the number of neutrons keeps changing. And I told you that the number of neutrons pretty much has no effect on the properties of the atom because neutron doesn't do anything. Anyway, so you've got two bromines now, and I told you that in the pure table, bromine had a mass of 80. If you remember this, I told you that there was no bromine that was actually 80. You had two bromine isotopes. One had 79 as the nucleon number. The other one had a nucleon number of 81. They had different number of neutrons. But when you took the average, like if you had a box of bromine atoms and you wanted to take the average mass would come out to be 80. Do you remember this? Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Saneem, Asida, is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, so I told you that, and we had a discussion on this that, and in that discussion, just one second, I've lost the periodic table. EQA. Now, in that discussion about isotopes, I had told you that there are different versions of the same element, and I told you that, for example, chlorine is 35.5. In reality, there is no chlorine that's 35.5. Chlorine is either 35 or is 37. I mean, the masses that are given over here are averages. And so the question is, I mean, this question is about bromine. So seeing what can be deduced about the naturally occurring bromine from this information. That the two isotopes, one has a mass of 79, the other one has a mass of 81. But the atomic mass of bromine is taken as 80. So why do you do that? Reason you do that is that bromine contains the two isotopes in equal proportions. So when you average them out, it comes out to be exactly 80. Because both bromines, the probability of getting of both bromines is exactly the same. Like if you have 100 bromine atoms, 50 of them would be this one, 50 of them would be this one. If you have two bromine atoms, one of them would be this one, the other one would be this one. So when you take the average, it comes out to be exactly 80. So, is this clear? Afan, clear?
Yes, sir.
Now the next one is an element X forms a positive ion with electronic structure of 288. So remember, so what is the proton number of X? As a first thing, this is the electronic structure of a positive ion. So what do you think? Would the original atom have more electrons than this or less electrons than this?
Sir, more.
Okay, you can only form positive ions if you lose electrons. So the original atom must have had more electrons in it. So this has 18 electrons. So that means the original atom probably has more electrons. I mean,
Yes, sir.
it probably has 19 protons and 19 electrons, and then it loses electrons. It gets 18 electrons, and therefore gets a charge of +1.
Yes, sir.
So, so this is this question. Next one is, which statement about the number of particles in atoms is correct? Apart from hydrogen, most atoms contain, first thing, more neutrons than protons. Uh, More neutrons than protons. So we need to verify this statement. Do most atoms, and he's talking about most atoms. So he's not talking about all atoms. He's talking about most atoms. So let's open the periodic table. Do they contain more neutrons than protons? So I'm gonna just pick uh, I'm gonna just pick random atoms, and let's see what is that statement correct. How many neutrons? Let's take fluorine as an example. Fluorine is 9 and 19. So how many protons does it have?
9,
And neutrons?
10.
I guess it's got 10 neutrons, right? So this statement looks fine for fluorine. It has more neutrons than protons. Let's pick another element. Let's pick chlorine, 17 and 35. So it's got 17 protons, and the number of neutrons is 35 minus 17. That's 18 neutrons. So again, it seems that the atoms, they do contain more neutrons than protons, and we can pick just to be on the safe side, we can pick potassium. Potassium in the periodic table is 19 and 39. So it's got 19 protons and it's got 20 neutrons. So the first statement kind of, it looks fine because every time you have more neutrons than protons. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
The second is obviously incorrect because more protons, that's obviously incorrect. Uh, and the last two are definitely wrong because when you're talking about atoms, atoms are neutral. So that means they have the same number of protons and the same number of electrons. The positive and the negative charge is exactly the same. So these two are definitely wrong. So A is the only option. This one, the atoms, the two atoms given, they have the same what? Can anyone answer? Do they have the same nucleon number?
So what is nucleon number?
Nucleon number is the one that's on the top. I mean, this is known as the atomic mass,
Atomic. Yes, sir. Yes. Okay, sir.
or it's also known as the nucleon number. Nucleon is whatever is in the nucleus. It's the protons plus the neutrons. I mean, whenever you hear the term nucleon, what that means is it's referring to protons and neutrons together. So
Okay.
so they definitely have a different number of. As a C, they have the same number of neutrons. That is correct because 29 minus 64 is what?
35
And this is also 35. So they have the same number of
neutrons.
neutrons. I said this one. What is the structure of the ion? First, tell me how many protons would it have,
38,
and how many neutrons would it have?
52,
Okay, so it's either of these two. And how many electrons? 2 plus means
36.
okay, 2 plus means that it lost 2 electrons, right? So it's going to be 36. I mean, it would have been 38, but now since it has lost 2 electrons, it's going to be 36.
Yes, sir.
As the next one, so you've got a beam of particles contains neutrons, protons, and electrons. The beam is passed between charged plates. Remember, Positive attracts what? Negative, right?
Yes, sir.
So now in this case, which diagram is correct? Turhan, any idea? Adil?
Sir, A.
So A is the neutron has no charge, so it's going to pass straight through. It's not going to be attracted. Remember, I told you that neutron is completely irrelevant. It doesn't do anything. TK. It has no interactions with anyone. So it's going to pass straight through. The electron is obviously going to go towards the positive side, and the protons are definitely going to go towards the
Negative.
negative side. Uh, so that's definitely true. And why is the electron deviating more? What's the reason for that? Uh, Anyone else? Can anyone answer this? Ashita, why are electrons deviating more compared to protons and neutrons?
Sir, I'm confused too.
ठीक है, just one second. नहीं, not because they're in the shells. अच्छा, ये तो Ashita, is this clear? I mean, the diagram is clear, right? The electron is supposed to get attracted to the positive side,
Yes, sir,
right?
yes,
अच्छा,
yes.
so the question is, Salim, नहीं, आपका your answer is also not correct. The reason electrons are deviating more is because electrons are lightest. Proton has a mass of 1, neutron has a mass of 1, the electron has a very tiny mass. It's 1 over 1836. So if you have a very tiny particle, then it's going to deviate a lot more. I mean, when a force is applied, like when it gets attracted to the positive charge, heavy things, it's harder to actually move them. You need more force. So proton is a lot heavier than an electron. So which is why light particles deviate more. Clear? Azita, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Saneem, is this clear?
Yes.
So next one is you've got they have the same again it's the number of neutrons. It's a similar question. 31 minus 15 and 32 minus 16 is going to give you the same value, which is 16.
Yes.
So now you've got two particles x and y, and they have the composition shown in the table. Uh, so particles x and y, what are they? Are they metal atoms? So how do you figure out whether they are metal atoms or not? You look at the protons and you look at the position in the periodic table. So you have one is 8 and the other one is 17. Remember, elements are identified according to their number of protons. Open the periodic table. So where is 8? So 8 is over here. So 8 protons and this is 17 protons. So they're both non-metals. I told you that they're both non-metals because we just did non-metals. Kahan gaya? So this one. 8 and 17, both of them are non-metals. They like to gain electrons. So which is why the answer to this one. किधर चला गया board? So the first one is definitely not correct. And the second one is definitely correct. They're both non-metal atoms. But is that correct? Is that statement fully correct or not? I mean, they are non-metals, right? ये बात clear. Azida, is this clear? Salama, is this clear? That they are non-metals, right?
Yes.
But what's not clear is, are they atoms? I mean, are they neutral atoms? Are they atoms or are they ions? Can you even tell me? Do they have an overall charge or not? I mean, we've got the
Sir, they
first.
are negative ions.
Take the negative ions because this has 8 protons and it's supposed to have 8 electrons, but it instead has 10 electrons. So that means there are 2 electrons extra. That means the charge is -2.
Yes, sir.
And similarly, this one has 17 protons, but it should have 17 electrons if it was neutral. But 18 electrons. So that means it has gained 1 electron, so the charge is -1. So both of them are negative ions. Option number B is partially correct, not fully correct. So they
Yes,
are,
sir.
I mean, if it was written that they were non-metal ions, then it would have been correct. So next is what is the nuclear number of? So you just have to subtract the two values. Need not subtract. What's the nuclear number? जल्दी से बताओ. What's the answer to this?
235.
ठीक है. So remember the difference between neutron and nucleon. Nucleon is whatever is in the nucleus. It's the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. So that's the top number. That's the nuclear number. It's 235. Now this one, an atom of element X is represented by this thing, and which statement? So so it says which statement about an atom of X is correct. So again, you have to go and identify this in the periodic table. Identify it according to its proton number. That's 3.
Lithium.
So in the periodic table, it is lithium. It's over here, 3 and 7. So first thing, it's a metal, right? It's on the left side, and it's going to have a charge of +1. It's in group 1 as well.
Yes, sir.
So it's in group 3. It's in group 7. That's wrong. Totally wrong. The total number of protons and electrons is 6. Is this correct? Anyone? Is this correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this statement is correct. Okay, if you look at this atom, it's going to have 3 protons, and it's a neutral atom, so it's going to have 3 electrons, and 7 minus 3 is 4 neutrons, right? So that's the arrangement of the particles in this atom. And he was talking about the number of protons plus the number of electrons. So that is definitely 6.
Yes, sir.
And the last statement is also incorrect. The total number of protons and neutrons, that is 7. That's the nuclear number. So the last statement is incorrect. I said, what property decides the order of the elements in the periodic table? So on what basis are the elements arranged in the periodic table?
Sir, proton number.
Okay, so they're arranged according to the number of protons in the nucleus.
Yes, sir.
Okay, they're all arranged in this way. I said next is, let's do another one. We have, this one is slightly tricky. He's saying the total number of outer shell electrons. Remember, he's plotting the outer shell electrons for atoms of the first 12 elements. So first 12 elements means that the first element would have 1 electron, the second will have 2 electrons, and so on. The third one will have 3 electrons, the fourth one will have 4 electrons, and he's plotting the atoms, right? So what would the graph look like of the outer shells? Outer shells, okay? So for that we can refer to the to this table, period table over here. So first one, how many valence electrons does it have? It has 1.
Yes, sir.
I mean, this has just 2 electrons, so there are 2 valence electrons, right? I said now, remember he's talking about the outer shell electrons. This is group 1. Group 1 has how many electrons? 1 in its outer shell.
1.
Group 2 is going to have 2 electrons in its outer shell. I told you that the group number is the number of electrons in the outer shell. So it's going to have 3. This one will have 4 electrons. This will have 5 electrons. This will have, and so on.
6.
Is 7, and the last is 8. And then you move to group 1 again. So again, you have how many electrons? 1 electron. So the graph would look like this: 1 electron, 2 electron, then again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then again 1. So it's going to look like the way it's shown over here. The first one is going to have one electron, then two electrons, then again it's group one electron, and then it would start to increase, and then again one electron.
Okay, sir.
So it's going to, remember he was talking about the outer shell electrons only. So the outer shell electrons are not the total number of electrons, just the outer shell. So electrons keep on increasing in the outer shell, and then you're again at group one, so it's again one electron in the outer shell. Is this question clear?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, बाकियों में भी clear है? Is this? One second, Miss. I said now. So which ion has the most shells that contain electrons? So first one. The first one is. Let's do this last one. This is 13. So it's going to be 2, 8, and 3. But the 3 electrons in the last shell are going to be gone. So who has the most shell? This only has 2 shells. Beryllium is 4, I think. So that's 2 and 2. But beryllium is 2 plus, so that is also gone. So it only has 1 shell. N has 7 electrons. But 3 minus means it has 8 electrons. So it's going to be 2 and 3 minus means it's going to have 10 electrons. So it's going to be 2 and 8. And the last one is, it has 16 electrons. So 2 minus means that it's going to be 18 electrons. So it's going to be 2, 8, and another 8. So
Yes,
the last one is the correct answer because that has the most.
shells.
It has the most shells. चलिए ठीक है, अभी बस एंड में I'll just post this. We'll do more questions on this. मैं बस एंड में I'm just posting this in the group. कहाँ गया?
Okay, sir.
चलिए ठीक है, let's continue tomorrow. ठीक है, remember tomorrow's class. ठीक है.
Okay, sir.
And we'll continue more past paper questions. Okay, Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz, sir.